Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deeper Than Dieting series. Today is part 4 where we're talking about food cravings. This is a topic that the health industry really does not know how to unpack and really understand, and I want to do that here with you. Because the truth is, why do we have so many health programs out there? Why was I taught as a dietitian all about nutrition facts, health information, how to make health programs and plans, but yet nobody talked about what do you do when you're by yourself late at night and you feel that magnetic pull back into the kitchen and you watch yourself grab a temptation that you swore you weren't going to eat, or you give in to something that you were not going to have, and that's the thing that keeps you stuck. I think that this magnetic pull towards our old temptations or food cravings, not trusting ourselves with food, is the biggest downfall of why people feel stuck with being able to move forward with their health. And the problem is that nobody's really addressing this and understanding what are food cravings. And so what the default usually is, if you look up, how do I handle food cravings? A lot of people will give strategies like drink water, go for a walk, chew gum, write it down and submit it to your nutrition coach. Or maybe do something to avoid the feeling of hunger, like take an appetite suppressant, maybe like Ozempic. And the problem with all of these strategies is that they don't hit on what is actually happening in our physiology that's creating a food craving and this feeling of I don't trust myself. The avoidance tends to not work long term. And it's estimated that about 85 to 95% of diets fail to stick long term. And so I created this series, Deeper Than Dieting, to ask these deeper questions. Why is it that sometimes health can feel hard, we self-sabotage, and is that how it's supposed to be? And the answer is no, it's not. But we need to think differently. We need to start looking at our approach to health through a different lens. And right now, the only solution that's really talked about in the health industry is an avoidance of food cravings and temptations. In fact, you might hear somebody say, yeah, if you give in to temptations, you need more willpower, you need more discipline, you need more motivation. And you might even hire a coach to be that rah-rah motivational inspiration for you. They're checking in on you. They're holding you accountable. But if it's not really getting to the root of what is creating that magnetic pull towards food, it'll always feel like a fight in a war. But if you can allow yourself, give yourself permission to sink into the space in between you and your food and study this interaction and understand why we get food cravings, that's where we find freedom. It's where I found freedom. Because as a dietitian, I knew so much about health. I had tons of health information in my brain. But sometimes I would watch myself self-sabotage, and it was really a very frustrating and painful place to be. And so I became really curious with understanding, what are food cravings? Why do we get them? Why do we know what we're supposed to do to eat healthy, but we feel this magnetic pull towards those old temptations? And if we can understand that part, then we can become free from that place that might feel like food is holding its power over us. And that's really where the deep healing begins. So I have not found that freedom has ever come from avoiding temptations or even doing things that suppressed my own appetite. It never led to freedom. Freedom was actually turning and facing the thing that I didn't want to look at, which was my relationship with food. So in this topic, we're going to go into a deeper exploration of understanding what are food cravings, why do we get them, why do we feel like we're not in control, and how do we begin healing that and coming into a deep sense of self-trust so that we can feel free and that health can feel easy. It can feel like, yeah, I want to eat this cookie and then I can honor my body and walk away. We don't feel like the cookie controls us and we lose control. It can be a really incredible self-exploration. So I hope you find today enlightening. Let's dive into all about food cravings. I found that this is a much more effective path to changing your health long term and really making it stick. This is a lot more effective than just using a nutrition plan or food goals, is to really understand your cravings. It's so much more effective. I've been working with clients for about 12 years now, and when I first started, all of my clients really struggled to change, and I was doing that conventional model of just giving people health goals and telling them eat these foods, don't eat these foods. But because they didn't understand their cravings, they'd be really motivated, but then they'd give into temptations and they'd go back to their old ways. And so they constantly were faced with one step forward, two steps back. When I had them shift and to start exploring their cravings, they learned how to trust themselves because the cravings were no longer taking over them and causing them to give in to temptations. So what actually happened is they got healthier and they were able to be more liberal with their eating. They were able to be in choice. Because they didn't let their cravings control them, they could say, today I want to be healthy, I want to eat the salad, it feels easy. Or today I want to have the cookie, but because I'm not controlled by cravings, I can eat some, put it down, and then walk away and really honor my body. And so they were able to eat more indulgences and not be controlled by their food. And so they felt so much more in choice of like, I want to choose to eat healthier, or I want to have indulgences, but I'm not going through this period of like really restricting it and then losing control and binging on it. So the roller coaster's really smoothed out. A lot of my students who have struggled with their weight for their entire lives doing the older model continued to struggle, where they would lose a little bit or get a little bit healthier and then they would go right back. When they started to switch and they understood their cravings and they built that trust with their body and not being controlled by cravings, then they had so much more freedom with their food and they could get healthier and lose weight. And it's a consistent path that is so much longer lasting because you're not constantly fighting your cravings. You're just really tuned in of like, oh, I want to eat healthy, or I want to eat a cookie and then I want to be done with it. And so I find that there's so much more freedom in getting healthier when you understand your cravings instead of being controlled by them. So if you want to learn about this, you have to start thinking differently. It's really the only way that you can start doing this kind of work is to think outside of the conventional model. And this can be very difficult. It can come with a lot of resistance because we're so programmed to like, your food cravings are bad, so avoid them. I want you to embrace them. This thinking is the only way that you can do this kind of work. Because when you embrace and you allow your cravings and you see them as something very important that you need to study, then you'll understand what they're here for, what's happening, and you'll be able to work with them. So this is difficult. It was difficult for me because I was trained as a dietitian that we avoid temptations, and I got a lot of that messaging from the health industry. This is going to be opposite. This is going to challenge you. What I mean by moving towards your cravings is not that you have to eat every single food or give in to those temptations. It's actually not even about whether you eat the food or not. It's about understanding the space in between those two moments of what's happening inside of my body, and before I interact with this food, what is happening in this space that's creating this magnetic pull, and studying this space. So you might be thinking like, well, does exploring my cravings mean I have to eat everything and I have health goals? And no, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't actually mean that you have to eat the food or not eat the food. It's, can you move your awareness towards the thing that might be difficult for you instead of the conventional model where everything is avoid. I flip things upside down and do it very differently, but that's where I find the freedom. So what are food cravings and why do we even get them in the first place? Well, food cravings it's just like a craving for anything. It's this like magnetic pull. It's a desire to maybe feel pleasure or to avoid a pain, or a sign or a signal that our body is trying to get our attention for something. So it could be just similar to like a craving for anything that's outside of you. It could be a craving for a person, a craving for social media, a craving for alcohol, a craving, whatever. Anything outside of you, there could be this desire to use something outside of you to create a pleasure or to take away a pain. And that's what food can do for us. And so there's actually a lot of beauty in this craving because it can be a beautiful coping mechanism to get us through really painful experiences. If you think about how early we learn this, as soon as we come out of the womb and you're breastfed or you're bottle fed or whatever it is, you immediately, as soon as you start crying, you get this food of like, oh, okay, I'm safe. So when we crave food, it's a communication from our body that we need something. And so it's really important. It's a very important primal signal that comes from our body. The amazing thing is that we can regulate this signal. Our appetite can increase, our appetite can decrease. And if we learn how to communicate with this signal from our body, we can start working with our bodies instead of feeling like it's the enemy and like suppressing and forcing our bodies into whatever, exercise or extreme programs, or we don't have to do that anymore when we know how to work with that signal. So think of your cravings as a very important message from your body. We don't want to suppress cravings because we miss the important message that comes from the body. We want to allow and listen to that signal. And it can be scary if you are afraid of working with it. So yeah, I get that you might want distractions if you're afraid of working with this signal. When you have the courage and when you're ready, by listening to the signal from the body, you can learn about what it has to teach you. This was a huge mindset shift that gave me so much freedom. And I learned so much about myself. One memory that is so strong for me, I remember this very pivotal moment for me where I used to get this craving where I would be in the middle of a work day and I would just like every 5 minutes get up, walk to the kitchen, grab a snack, come back. Get up. And it was like, I watched and I was like, why am I doing this? Maybe I should go for a walk. And then I would go for a walk and I would kill about 20 minutes of time. And then I'd come back even more stressed because I'm like, wait, the craving is still here. I just wasted 20 minutes and now I'm even more stressed. Or I would take a break and do a meditation. And then I'd be like, okay, well, I did my meditation, but the craving is still here. And I just wasted about 30 minutes of time. Now I'm more anxious. Now I have more cravings. And so the craving was like pushing a balloon underwater and then it would come back up. And then I'd push it back down and it would come back up. And then I would try to use all these different strategies to manage it and it would come back up. And so when I finally surrendered, I was like, okay, I need to like understand what is happening here. And I started to get curious and ask deeper questions of why do I have a craving right now? What is coming up? And I started to explore and feel in my body, oh, I have a lot of anxiety around work right now. And food is helping me calm that anxiety. And as soon as I learned from that lesson that was in there, now I started practicing every time I would have anxiety because I was stuck with something with work. I would start asking the question, who can help me with this problem that I'm having? And I started to make better I started to value that craving was telling me that I was having anxiety about something important, like I needed support or I didn't know what step to take next. And then so I started leaning into finding that true support that I really needed. And then that became the new behavior, is like actually finding what I was really needing. And then that itself got to the core of calming my anxiety. And now I don't feel cravings anymore when something comes up with work. Instead, I'm more strategic and I'm like, great, who can help me? What do I need to do right now? How do I get clarity? And I can see that I can be a lot more effective with my approach instead of going straight to food to calm my anxiety but never getting to the root of the problem. So my cravings became my most valuable teacher to show me where is something off in my life. This is a really big perspective shift, right? Cravings can bring us pleasure. They can calm our nervous system. They can give us the feeling of love, safety. If we ignore that craving is telling us that we need something, we need soothing, we're experiencing a pain, we're avoiding something, we need pleasure. If we ignore that valuable signal, we suppress it, or we use a distraction to get rid of it, or we use something to disconnect from our appetite, we miss one of the most valuable signals from our body that tells us, hey, you need something. This is not a lack of willpower. This is a shift in your body's chemistry and your body sending you a signal, I need something. We don't want to suppress it. We want to listen to it so that we can really trust that it's leading us into a deeper relationship with ourselves because we're getting the sign, hey, I need something. This is so important. So just thinking differently about food cravings can already give you such a huge change in your relationship with food. Just having that perspective shift. Oh, I'm going to get curious. I wonder what my body is trying to teach me. We've already, just by shifting that mindset, have taken a big leap forward from getting out of those same cycles, right? It's the curiosity that's going to launch you forward into understanding your body and your cravings. Use that tool that you have, this awareness with a lot of curiosity. And so there are really 4 different types of food cravings that it's really helpful to identify which one am I having that can help you know how do you address it. So I'm going to talk about what are those 4 different types so you can see, okay, what am I really needing right now? And so the first craving type is a food-based craving type. And this is that type of feeling of where you get that blood sugar crash, where you get like super hungry or you're like hangry. And this usually comes on when you haven't had enough food to eat. Maybe you were really motivated in the morning, so you didn't eat a lot of food, you tried fasting, and then later on you're just like, I need food, and you lose all control. You get that big blood sugar drop. And that can feel, I call that one like the zombie attack. And that's where it's like something takes over your brain and you're just like, you could eat anything. You're like, I need chips. I could eat my left arm. And you know it's because you haven't had enough food in a while. And I talk about this one first because it's the easiest one to fix, right? Eat more food, eat more consistently. I've had a few students who said, oh, you know what? I was getting this blood sugar crash and I realized I went too long after lunch without eating, and then I would come home and eat a bunch of chips. Where once I had a realization of that, all I needed was to keep a snack like some nuts, some good proteins and fats, or something that could stabilize the blood sugar throughout the day. And then all of a sudden that huge crash doesn't happen and that craving just naturally goes away. If you think about it, if you don't eat for a long time, it's going to send a warning signal to your body. Like you're going to have an alarm go off. Like, we need food, we need food, we need food. And so the more that you need food and the more that alarm goes off, the more you're going to feel that like hangry dip, like I need food right now. So notice if you have not had enough food to eat, maybe you need more protein, maybe you actually just need to eat more or not skip meals. And so this is a really easy one to just fix if you're getting this craving type. The second craving type is mood, and that is related to low serotonin levels. Low serotonin levels are much more common than what most people know and realize, and that's because our environment can deplete serotonin. Things like caffeine, alcohol, artificial sweeteners, or not eating enough protein can really deplete our serotonin levels. We need good protein to be able to make the neurotransmitter serotonin. And this allows us to feel happy and to feel optimistic. And carbohydrates help increase the level of serotonin. So if you have low serotonin and you feel this kind of depressed melancholy, or you can't sleep at night, or even feeling depressed and anxious, and you maybe don't eat a high protein diet, and you feel like you just want to, you get cravings, especially midday or towards the evening, like before bed, that can be a sign that your neurotransmitter serotonin is off. And because carbohydrates help produce serotonin, your natural instinctual drive is your body's going to receive the signal. Serotonin levels are low. We need to get this human to eat carbohydrates to help increase serotonin levels. And this can provide a temporary boost, but over time it doesn't work as well. So you need more and more and more carbohydrates to create more serotonin. So if you have that mood that feels off and you have this kind of grazing like desire to snack, or you want to eat midday, you crave carbohydrates midday or the end of the evening, this one can be a mood imbalance. And one of some things that you'll notice is if you eat more protein, that can be really helpful to increase serotonin. That can make a big shift in cravings. And also the supplement 5-HTP can be really helpful to that. Those are the building blocks to making more serotonin. And 5-HTP may not be for everybody. It can interact with some medications like SSRIs potentially. So always make sure that you work with a practitioner on this if you're thinking about taking 5-HTP. Many people will notice that if they do have a low mood or low serotonin and they take 5-HTP, they often will see positive results in about a week or 2 weeks. Some people see it in as short as 24 hours, and they can feel drastically different. I've had some of my students who started taking 5-HTP and they said within the next day, their mood was lighter, they felt so much better, and their food cravings in the midday just completely went away. And so this won't work for everyone if your cause of cravings are not low serotonin. So you might take 5-HTP and you're like, yeah, I didn't really notice a difference. You're probably not the mood-based craving. But if you take 5-HTP and you eat more protein and you feel so much better, then it's probably related to low serotonin. The third craving type is related to the nervous system. And the way that this feels is if you're under stress, it'll feel like 1 minute you have a ton of willpower and you're like very on track with eating healthy. And then it feels like something took over your brain and put you into like a hypnosis where you like go tunnel vision on food and you impulsively grab food and you eat it. And then you're like, what the heck? Why would I just do that? It doesn't make any sense. Why would I do that? That hypnosis-like feeling is the nervous system, the interplay between feeling like you're in rest and digest and your body is safe, or you go into a fight or flight stressed state. So when your body feels safe, that is your prefrontal cortex working in the brain. It gives you good rational thinking. You're like, yeah, I should eat the salad today. You might notice this on a day that it's sunny out and you hear a good song and you're in a good mood and you're happy and you're like, I'm going to eat salad forever. I'm never going to eat the cookie again. Like the things that you tell yourself. And then if all of a sudden things switch and maybe something triggers your nervous system or you feel stressed or an emotion comes up or like something comes up that creates a stress response, that switches what area of your brain is working. It's called your amygdala. This is your fight or flight brain. And fight or flight survival brain takes priority over everything. So your body's physiology will shift in order for you to go seek food for safety. Stress means you need safety. This goes back to like the primal days, the cavemen days, right? Of when the body is designed to get us to eat more food for survival, when there's the signal that we need food for survival, for stress. The problem is that back in the cavemen days, stress meant extreme fasting, like there was no access to food, or stress meant you had to go run from a wild animal and you're going to need carbohydrates to fuel your body. The problem with today's stress is that our stress is just chronic. We have tons of bills, or we have relationship dynamics, or all these different problems that come up. And so when we get that constant activation, that will take over our brain and our body, and rational thinking is gone. It will turn off that area of the brain that had good rational thinking that's like, yeah, the salad would be healthy for me. And now it's the amygdala that is turned on, which is, what do I need to do to keep this human into a survival state, like out of a state of survival? What do I need to do to keep this human healthy? So what's interesting is the body's physiology will start to shift. All of a sudden, your appetite increases. You might feel hungry. And what's interesting is the taste bud receptors on your tongue can change shape so that food will taste sweeter, so that you naturally, as a human, will want to eat more, because more calories and sugar and carbohydrates creates safety. It gives you energy. It makes sure that you're alive. So you'll have an increased appetite and you'll go like tunnel vision on food, and you won't be thinking about, or maybe you will think about, oh, I should be eating healthier foods, but that's not going to be what your body's doing. Your body will turn into this animalistic, like almost like tiger, like I need food now, right? 1 minute you had a ton of motivation, and then all of a sudden you're just like heading for the chips, and it feels like something took over your brain, and then you overeat. And then once you get excess calories or excess sugar, your body senses, okay, we've had plenty of food, we have plenty of calories, this human is safe. Now your stress system comes down, and then your prefrontal cortex comes back online again because you're safe. Okay, now we have rational thinking. Once you have your rational thinking back and you're like, wait a second, why would I eat that food? That's not what my health goals were. Why would you do that? And because we don't understand what's happening beneath the surface, it comes with a lot of judgment and shame of like, why would I do that? And then it comes with that, you always do this, and that firms up the identity that we can't do it. And it just couldn't be further from the truth. That's not actually what's happening. what's happening is that your body is going back and forth in between I'm safe, it is safe to eat healthier, it's safe to cut back calories and to lose weight and to lose fat. But as soon as your brain perceives there might be a threat to the survival, the stress system is activated. Now all of a sudden you go into this hypnosis and it's like something took over your brain. You eat the food, you eat excess of it, and then it restores safety in the body. So that's the third one, which is nervous system. If you can identify with that hypnosis-like feeling, where you want to focus on is re-regulating your nervous system. This is the one that I have my students focus on the most. We use techniques like using proper breathing, understanding that point of stress. Where is the nervous system getting activated? This is going to give you a starting point, like a jump off point of like, hey, this is me. Now I want to go deeper into understanding my nervous system. Where is the stress signal coming up? When you understand what's happening in that stress response, then you don't go into that animalistic like state anymore. When you can create safety in your body and your nervous system feels safe, your mind, your body feels safe, then you don't go into that fight or flight nervous system state. And then you don't lose that control over your food. You don't go into the hypnosis. Once I learned how, this one was the biggest one for me. Once I learned how to re-regulate my nervous system and create safety in my body, then I just don't get that hypnosis feeling anymore. But I was getting it like daily, all the time. And so now it just doesn't come on anymore because I regulate my nervous system. And so if you identify with that hypnosis-like state, that's what you want to focus on. How do I create that regulation? What is creating my stress response? And that's what's going to give you the freedom. The last craving type comes from the subconscious. It's a subconscious craving type. And this is the one that is deeper and out of your awareness. So with this craving type, you might have this feeling of like, I know what I'm supposed to do to be healthy and I know what I want, but I'm watching myself do something different. I'm watching myself have repeated patterns, or I'm watching myself be drawn to my old ways. And that's because the mind has been programmed with a deeper relationship with food. And so we tend to look at our relationship with food, or we look at our food cravings as, what am I experiencing today? But the truth is, the relationship with food was originated way from the past, and our mind learns that relationship. So, for example, let's say you were a kid and your parents told you you can't leave the dinner table until you finish eating all of your food. So as a kid, you learn, okay, don't listen to my stomach, use my visual of the plate to not finish until the plate is gone. And then your brain gets programmed with that information, that is the correct thing to do. And then you grow up in life and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to eat all of the food. And then someone tells you, no, you have to do a diet, you only eat half the food. And you're like, but okay, so now I know what I'm supposed to do, but internally I've been programmed that that's not right, that I need to eat all of the food. And so it creates this inner conflict. It feels like an inner tug of war between what you learned as a child and what you're supposed to be doing now. And so the subconscious cravings come from our subconscious mind, and it takes a deep exploration, because this could include memories, it could include feelings. It's a deeper part of us that drives our behavior beyond what we're just seeing than what meets the eye. And so in the subconscious, we need to follow feelings. We need to follow what is happening in that moment with our cravings. So for example, one of my students really struggled to give up certain foods, and she found that she was like overeating these foods. And I asked her and said, what are you feeling? Moving her closer to the craving, what are you feeling in that moment when you crave those foods? She said, it's so weird. I feel like I have this like fear of if I don't have enough of it, but why would I feel that? I have plenty of food, but I'm having this internal feeling of fear if I don't overeat. I don't understand. And I told her, okay, feel that fear. Now go back and travel back in time, back to when you were a kid. Is there a time that you felt that fear with food? And she said, oh yeah, when I was younger, we didn't have enough food at home. And so when she was younger, she learned in her body that, in her mind, that there's not enough food. And so that created this relationship between food and fear. So, and this is really common. A lot of my students experience this one, that they didn't have enough food when they were younger. And then so they learned as a coping mechanism that food, there's not enough food, and it creates fear. So then there's an overcompensation of I need to eat excess in order to make me feel safe. And then even though as an adult you might have plenty of food, that relationship, that craving to food, because it came from a place of fear, is still there in the subconscious mind. So what you can do with the subconscious is feel, what are you feeling when a craving comes up, and track back, what was the origin point of what you're feeling and experiencing? What did you learn as a child? Did food provide comfort? What was food giving you as a child that is now giving you today as an adult? And you can learn about what your deeper needs are. So now when me and my students will create the feeling of safety and let their bodies know we have an abundance of food, and they're changing that relationship with food, knowing that it once there was a place of fear and scarcity, and now they're letting their body know, they're letting their mind and their body catch up. We have plenty of food, we're taken care of, then the nervous system can calm down, and that need to overeat softens, or that craving for food softens on its own. You don't have to force and willpower it away. So that fourth type, that subconscious type, is really exploring what are my feelings, what memories come up around it, and finding the origin point of what was food providing, or the snacks providing. Was it giving comfort? Was it giving love, safety? And that can open up such a deep core root understanding to really shift the relationship to food from a really, really deep place. So learning about these 4 different craving types really helped me understand, what is it that I'm really needing? Am I in a stress response? Is my blood sugar low and I need to eat more food? Is my mood off? Is there something from my past that needs a bit of updating in my mind and my heart and my body? So the cool thing is that when you see cravings in a different light and you start understanding the different ways that they communicate to you, how are you feeling? What's coming up inside it when you have a food craving? When you start having this type of interaction, it opens up a whole new world of being able to learn about yourself. Food cravings are actually the door that opens up so much for us to understand about ourselves. What am I really needing? And it becomes a really fun self-exploration into a deeper knowing of ourselves. Food cravings have been such a gift to me to understand when my body is like, hey, I need your attention. We need food, or there's a feeling here, or there's something that you're not willing to feel right now. What is it? And so food cravings, if we shift our mindset around them, they can be valuable teachers. It can be so empowering. So it doesn't have to be a weakness. We don't have to see this as I'm a victim to my food or my cravings. We can say, what is this feeling that it creates inside of my body? How do I cozy up closer to it, get to know it, and what it's really telling me about myself and about my body? And that's how we build self-trust and being able to be around any food. If I see that as a child, food gave me comfort, let's say a cookie. If I know that as a child, a cookie gave me comfort, and that's coming from my subconscious mind, that a cookie equals comfort because I had that behavior when I was younger, then every time I crave the cookie, I can start to ask and say, okay, what am I needing? I'm needing comfort. How do I create that internally for myself? Be that inner resource for myself, or learn what needs to change in order for me to receive that. And then I can enjoy the cookie without having endless cookies to provide comfort, because the cookie doesn't ever, maybe a little bit temporarily, but it never quite gets to what is it that we're really deeply needing. So that is how we can come into so much harmony between our food, because it's like, oh, I know how to create my comfort in my body. So because I know how to do that inside my body, my cookie was telling me I was needing comfort. My body now has practiced and knows how to do it. Now I can eat the cookie and not feel like I have to have it in order to provide me something. And that's really the path to feeling so confident with our health and being able to eat any food that we want and still feel healthy and fully trust ourselves. I don't have to fear the cookie anymore because I'm not using it or fully dependent on it to provide something for me. I'm just enjoying it and then moving on. But I need to first understand, what is it providing for me? And we can only do that with a place of curiosity instead of judgment. So our cravings can be really amazing teachers, and I love showing people that they don't have to fear their cravings. You can understand what your body is communicating and signaling to you. So I want you to think of this as becoming your own research project, understanding yourself, understanding these interactions. And this is how I have helped people really transform their health. And from a place it doesn't feel like a war. You come into harmony with the cookie when you understand that dynamic, and it's a beautiful self-exploration. It's a beautiful understanding between you and your own food and in your own body. So I hope you found this really helpful today, of understanding deeper what cravings are, shifting your mindset around them, understanding which one could I be having, and starting to do that deeper self-exploration so that health can feel easy between you and the cookie, or being fully in choice and sovereignty and in your power, and not having to go toward the path of restriction because I don't trust myself. That's my goal here. So I hope you enjoyed this. I would so appreciate if you gave it some love, if you liked it, if you found it to be helpful today. I'm just creating this series to give more understanding. And this is stuff that I really wish that I knew many years ago when I was trying to use willpower and fighting my way. So it does take more time. It's a bit of an investment for yourself to learn and study yourself, but you can stay stuck in the same patterns, not understanding, or find it fascinating and learn and research yourself. So if you enjoyed this, I'd appreciate if you let me know. And our next topic will be studying our environment and how that plays a role. So keep an eye out for future ones. You can subscribe to get notified when the next Deeper Than Dieting series comes out. And I'll see you next time.